Well, hi there, Westlight. We have a special episode of Spotlight today. We're going to be spotlighting a very special ministry that's been created just for a specific time like this, and that's called the Medical Advisory Team. So I'd like to introduce you to Tammy and Mitch. These are two people that's a part of that team. So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves?
Okay. I'm Tammy Nishimoto, and I just heard the term medical advisory team. It was from Pastor Lori, and she approached me. And I think in part, she approached me because she knew I was part of a life group, which is hosted by the Shimahara family. And Lorraine Shimahara is a licensed pharmacist, and Kristen Kaneko is in our life group, and she's an optometrist. And then I am not in the medical field, but my husband, Mitch, is. So she approached us or approached me, and then I talked to Lorraine and Kristen and Mitch, and it was mainly she just thought it would be a good resource during this time to have a resource where the pastoral team and the leaders of the church could go to ask questions or information about COVID and the pandemic, and just have it as a team that could give hopefully trusted information as opposed to having, confusion with members having to, look online for things, or just, hopefully help everyone have a source of good information. And that's kind of how it came about.
Our vision statement is to experience heaven together, and that includes making sure that we're loving on our neighbors. And during this pandemic, the way that we minister to our neighbors, it has to change, because if we are a carrier of a virus that could get somebody sick, no matter how much we're trying to care for them, we might actually be affecting them negatively. And so that's why it's so important to have a medical advisory team, such as what you guys are doing for us right now. And one of the big things that we're talking about now is, how do we reopen our church physically for physical gathering? And this is when you guys come into play in a huge way. So one of the big questions that's on everybody's mind right now is, how do we stay safe during this pandemic? And so far, I think we've all heard people say, make sure you wear your mask, stay socially distanced, wash your hands. And now there's a vaccine, but there's been a lot of controversy around vaccines right now. So Mitch, do you think you could share a few words on what does the vaccine actually do for us? Does it, how does it keep us safe? And are there any risks that are associated with getting these vaccines?
Sure. So the vaccines essentially are trying to provide you a mode to be exposed to parts of the virus so you can develop immunity. And that will give you protection against either contracting the virus, having serious complications in case you do contract the virus, and also reduce your risk of transmitting that virus. And there really right now are three options available to us vaccine-wise. All of them are very safe. There has been a fair amount of notoriety about some of the side effects and some of the more serious side effects. But whenever you get a vaccine or any treatment, we look at the risk-benefit ratio, right? What benefit are you getting out of it? And what is the risk to you of taking that therapy? And in this case, although there is some risk with any vaccine, including the COVID-19 vaccines, the benefit really far outweighs that risk. The benefit being, again, the reducing your risk of contracting the disease, lessening the effect of the disease if you do actually contract it, and then also reduce that risk of transmission. And most people will have some sort of mild side effect from the vaccine, but the serious side effects are very rare. And if you really try to do a risk analysis, you're really going to look at it and say, wow, that benefit of not contracting or having a lesser disease or not transmitting it really does far outweigh any risk or potential side effect that you might have.
Yeah, when I think about getting vaccinated, I think a lot of people, we tend to think in terms of, oh yeah, I'm gonna get vaccinated because it'll protect me. But I understand there's more benefits to it, like you could protect the people around you. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that's actually a big point, because ultimately, when we talk about things like, well, how do we get to a point where we can be safer amongst each other? And part of that is making sure the risk of transmitting a disease or contracting that disease gets to a point that's low enough. And part of the way we get there is either through actually having the disease or through vaccination. And the more people who are either vaccinated or have had the disease, there's less chance that that virus can continue to survive, because the virus needs that host, whether it's human, animal, whatever it is, but it needs a host to continue to survive. So if you isolate the possible hosts, then the risk of having that disease still prevalent out in the community reduces, and therefore safety levels will increase for all of us.
So you mentioned that there is greater benefit than there are risks in getting vaccinated. So what is that ratio? Is it like 1,000,000 to 1, or what's the ratio there?
You know, it's hard to say exactly, because the ratios, I mean, if we're talking about risk, we're talking about probably people are most concerned about these really severe complications that are related to the vaccine. And those are what we would consider the really serious side effects, whether it's an anaphylactic or severe allergic reaction, or the bigger thing recently is the blood clots. And we know those happen probably on a factor of, you know, in terms of blood clots, it was, I think they reported with the Johnson & Johnson, 15 cases out of 8 million vaccines.
Wow.
So yeah, pretty rare, right?
Yeah.
But for any given person, we can't necessarily say you're not going to, your risk is 0 of getting the complication. I mean, that's the difficult thing, but the complication rates are really, really rare for those really serious complications. The typical things, you know, people will inevitably have a sore arm, you know, little muscle aches, little fever, maybe little fatigue. Those things really are common, but really short-lived. And I think most people would say, you know, that's well worth any risk.
Yeah.
But I also say, from a medical standpoint, even though there are some of these serious side effects, in the bigger picture, the benefit really is far, far exceeds those risks. The risks aren't 0. That's the
yeah,
problem.
Benefits are huge in this case.
Yes, absolutely.
So these variants that we're hearing about in public, in the news, these variants are being created through hosts, right? Basically. So
Correct.
getting more people vaccinated, does that actually prevent more variances from appearing in the wild?
It actually does, because the virus needs to replicate in order to continue to survive. And in this process of reproducing and forming more virus particles, there can be errors in that translation of the RNA. And essentially what happens is that's how a mutation develops.
Wow.
Is it's being developed in the body, but there's a mistake in the translation of all the viral material. And so something comes out that is different than the parent virus. So if we can stop the existence of the virus within the human body, then that risk of creating all these different variants does go down significantly.
Okay. So a few weeks ago, Westlight, we did this little survey, online survey, to see what you miss most about Westlight. And a lot of people said, we miss singing together, we miss getting together, eating together. And so we got together, the leadership got together, and we talked about, well, how can we get there? What steps can we take to reopen our physical gathering? And we came up with this 3-phase approach. And the first phase is, we call it the pickup game, where you find another household that's been vaccinated, and then you get together and watch Sunday service together on YouTube. Of course, if you're comfortable. If you're not, you can still do it by yourself. And then phase 2 is what we like to call the and one, where we continue to do phase 1, but once a month, we'll get together as a bigger group outdoors where it's safe, still socially distanced, or you can stay at home. You know, you always have that option. And then phase 3, this is where we start gathering on a weekly basis. And we don't want to make any promises about whether if we could sing or eat at those gatherings, because we want to make sure everybody's safe. But that 3-phase approach of reopening Westlight's physical gathering, do you think that's safe? Do you see any big risks in that plan?
No, I think that's a really good plan. And I think each individual group has to really take into account the individuals and the group in total, and determine, based on the science that's available and the expert opinions that are available, and fit that into your situation and determine what is the best situation for you to keep yourself safe, keep the group safe, but also keep in mind that the importance of the community and how do you move forward and be able to provide to that community all the wonderful things that you provide to them. So yeah, I think the plan is really a good plan, because you want to kind of almost like you're getting into the pool. You put your toe in first and feel how comfortable you are. And as you feel more comfortable and the data supports moving forward, you go forward. But you also create individual opportunities for people who don't feel comfortable with that to still be able to enjoy and benefit from all the wonderful things you do, even if they don't want to be in person. So I think that's really a very prudent way to approach it, and a very safe way to approach it. And of course, situations can change. We've seen that with how many of the different outbreaks that have happened even after the initial outbreaks. And so you do have to pay attention to the data that's available, but you can really gear that to your own community, your local resources, and what's happening in your locality, and determine what's the safest way to proceed.
Yeah, and of course, we'll definitely be calling you and the medical advisory team to make sure that we're up to date on the recommendations that we need to follow. So I think there's one question, this will probably be the last question, but it's a question that's been on a lot of minds, which is right now the vaccination spread of vaccinations is limited to 16 years old or older. So what is the risk of bringing somebody that's younger than that into like a physical gathering or somebody's home? Like what are the risks there?
Well, unfortunately, since the vaccine is really only available for that 16 and over, you really have to treat children under 16 as if they're similar to an unvaccinated adult, because there is still that risk that they can contract the disease, they can transmit the disease, and all those issues become really important. I mean, obviously you don't want to leave them out of the community. I mean, they want to be able to feel accepted, but you still have to take those extra precautions in terms of masking, social distancing, the hand washing, everything that you would do otherwise. How much risk is there for them and for others around them? Like I said, I think that you really have to look at it individually and what's an acceptable risk, but ultimately they do have to be treated as if they're an unvaccinated adult in the same way you treat them.
Yeah, so that means that if in phase one, if two households decide to gather together and there's somebody in that group that's a 13-year-old, then it's probably wise, even though both sides are vaccinated, we should still wear masks and still be social distance even after the 2 weeks after the last shot that we got for vaccinations. Is that
Correct.
right? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that would be very prudent, right? If you're talking about trying to just keep everybody safe as possible, yeah, I think that'd be prudent.
Well, thank you so much for your expertise, and Tammy for your amazing communication skills, because you've been the middle person, right? You've been the one that's been.
I'm the messenger.
You're the messenger, and you're a great messenger at that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mitch and Tammy, so much for your time and everything that you do for us. And because of you, we're able to experience heaven together, and we're able to feel a little more at ease about what we're going to do. And you guys have played a huge role in making sure that we don't leave anybody behind, and that we're doing our best at keeping people safe, keeping it incremental, and keeping everything fluid at the same time. So thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.